You, officer! Come to investigate the historic subtext of West Martinez? I was just telling my son about this building. Not many people appreciate the historic significance here. Very rich in hypertext. You, officers! Come to investigate the historic subtext of West Martinez? I'm Trant Heidelstam. You must be Kim Kituragi, right? I was just telling my son about this building. Not a lot of people realize the historic significance here. Very rich in hypertext. And Mikhail noticed the windows, especially with how there are no windows on the south side. This was to deal with. Oh, I'm afraid it didn't end well for the boys. But this story is a bit too dark for little Mikhail here. Now, if you were to ask about tape computers, actually no one knows. No one even knows what a computer made entirely of tape would look like. But word has it, they were very elegant. Exquisite, alien-looking turn-of-the-century hardware. Me? Yes, at some point, I'm sure I have. There was this one rather memorable instance when I had a chance to meet the head of Dominion Police of Königstein. How to climb that ladder, you say? I do know that Lomantangs used sticks to climb battlements. There's even a special technique for that. No, thanks to you for having me and little Mikhail here to pick your brain. A very interesting conversation indeed. Hello again. I do have some money, yes, but that's not what's really important here. You're probably more familiar with RTD, Research and Technological Development. Oh no, I don't have it on me, officer. I was talking in more general terms. I do some Lomantang stick fighting now and then. Actually, a great many cultures have their own version of stick fighting, such as the sacred Mabolo tradition of the Harli people. The name deriving from the butterfruit tree traditionally used for crafting the long, slender sticks, whereas the sticks used in other cultures. It's an anthropological heritage of the Lomantang people. A martial art of sorts, but what not a lot of books mention is that it also carries a cultural significance among the Lomantangs, as it used to be the best means of showing off to look for a bride, which, interestingly enough, brings us to the socio-economic structure of the traditional rural tribes of the Lomantang Isles, which Lomantang stick fighting is a little like a Berolidin addiction. I've been practicing it for nearly 20 years now, so you could say that my doses have grown a little peculiar. That's right, Mikhail. It also has a meditative quality, helps to clear my head, but anyway. And as you know, they have this very distinctive dress uniform with scarlet breeches and little cylindrical fur caps. I think these are called... But anyway, I'm boring you with details again. You were saying? No, I'm just speculating theoretically here. Of course, there's also the method ancient Ilmarans used to get into the huts of their enemies. Then there's also the method of climbing that the ancient Ilmarans used to get into the huts of their enemies. If I'm not mistaken, then it involved months of following a very rigid exercise regimen. No, years. From an evolutionary point of view, you could see this building as a logical conclusion to the more traditional hut. In this case, I suggest looking into the Zeolite Invisibles class. The word refers to their remarkable ability to traverse any environment in the most efficient way possible. There's this excellent investigative piece of journalism by... Actually, no, I should not forget it. I should look into it myself. There are some really interesting techniques. Yes, I have. There was this one time where I... No, that doesn't sound like a very reasonable idea. Physics, remember? But anyway, tape computers. Yes, they even built a pleasure wheel, but that got destroyed in the war. Yes, to lure in their star engineers. This part of Martinez was nothing but reeds before Feld arrived. They had to make the prospect of living here attractive. It was supposed to become a global center for innovation in cybernetics. But history had other plans. Sure, what's on your mind? They used them for military communications, but also to write and send out press releases. The most notorious example being Le Décret de Mars. What's the Mars Decree? I mean the radio transmission sent out to news agencies and world governments by the newly created commune of Revachol on the 7th of March in the year 02. I tried to get Mikhail to memorize it. Tried to. Someone was much too interested in worms to be paying any attention. It's a beautiful piece of text, actually. A singer-songwriter I know, Charette, called it a love poem to Revachol on her political concept album Bon Baiser dans le Lind. You should read it. Every local library in Revachol stocks a copy of the decree. Very important. Mikhail, say hi to the officer. Mikhail's a little tired today. We spent all night trying to run Orbis on his radio computer. Have you heard of it? It's a programming language used in Grad. Quite tricky, but he wanted to play this Grad-made adventure program. We've been getting really into worms lately. But I assume you're not here for giant worms when there are so many real things to see. Just as I was telling Mikhail before, this is where the Coalition landed in '08. We could be standing on what is the most interesting landmark in Revachol West. Oh yes, so Mikhail? They had to deal with monitor glare, especially in the summer. They still had vector monitors back then. That was 49 years ago. So they didn't have windows on the south wall. No, I can't say that we've met before, but I've heard of him, of course. Mikhail, say hi to the officers. Hello. Isn't this a fine morning? Good evening. I'm just spending time with my kid here, showing him around the lesser-known parts of our hometown. It wouldn't be wise to carry huge amounts of cash on such expeditions. Of course, Detective, I wouldn't have assumed anything else. Matter of fact. If not, then you definitely should. If not for tips and tricks, then just for theoretical curiosity. Anyway, that's just a little something that sprang to mind. You were saying? I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the Vespertine Department of Justice has published a rather interesting paper on the criminal profiling in former socialist states. Have you read it? Aha! But it's not just any empty old building. What not a lot of people know is this used to be the R&D department of Felt Electrical, and Felt, which now sells ink cartridges mostly, was once a top dog in the turn-of-the-century cybernetics boom. Apologies, it's an acronym for research and development. They don't use it anymore. That's not surprising. Only a vestigial ink cartridge and ferrotape manufacturer remains. It was here in Martinez, possibly in this very building, that they developed prototypes for a tape computer. Indeed. What? But of course, what else? 10 years ago, I did a little freelancing, I guess you could say. I was a special consultant for an exhibition at the Womty Dumpty Dum Center in Vredefort, Oranje. It raised the same questions, and we had lengthy discussions with Paul Ockerman, who was head curator at the time. This was before the twins Keith and Guy Hughes joined the team, trying to the Womty Dumpty Dum Center for Contemporary Arts. The exhibition itself drew on Lagerman's notion of memory, and so there were some parallels. That's why the head curator, Paul Ockerman, chose to... In fact, I'm not. The Womty Dumpty Dum Center is a place you can visit if you're ever in Vredefort and are ever in the market for an exhibition space / contemporary art research center. Very, very cool. Though I understand the socio-economic causes of the revolution, it pains me to imagine the revolutionaries setting fire to this precious device. But so they did. The felt playback experiment vanished into the fires of '07. Officer, I told you this chapter of history wasn't on Mikhail's curriculum yet. Let's keep this kid friendly. You got me, Detective. But my history should hardly come as a surprise. Oh, I know, Detective. That's right, Mikhail. It also has a meditative quality. Helps to clear my head. But anyway, I'm boring you with details again. You were saying. Then I guess everything got said, right? The drizzle. It never seems to stop, does it? Then I guess everything got said, right? Still, Tricentennial was beating them in business machines. But Feld had an ace up their sleeve. Or should I say they were developing an ace up their sleeve? I'm mixing my metaphors here. Which is a feat of engineering even today's giants, Rehm, ICN and ZAM, haven't achieved yet. Unfortunately, their moonshot project never made it to the market. Feld's move to Revachol backfired. The revolutionary government liquefied their assets and expropriated those very advanced prototypes, possibly from this very building, or one of the adjacent ruins. But perhaps I should return to the tape computers. As I was saying, the device itself was very elegant, fragile even. One could write directly on the tape using a special chemical solution. The machine would then analyze the handwriting, perform operations, and project output onto a white screen. It was a beautiful, delicate thing. Yes, the official name of the prototype. Some sources report it as the Felt Playback Experience, but those are incorrect. Who knows? Maybe it was an accident, or maybe they didn't want the technology to end up in the wrong hands. Either way, they're all gone now. All 3 versions of the prototype. Nothing but debris and ashes remain inside that building. Okay, I have some materials at home I could share with you. It was here in Martinez, possibly in this very building, that they developed prototypes for All of this was built by Feld, even the boardwalk. Wild Pines built Martinez proper as a resort for their middle management. Feld built this side of town for R&D. Yes, tape computers and Feld Electrical. I certainly haven't. Though I understand the socio-economic causes of the revolution, it pains me to imagine the revolutionaries setting fire to this precious device. But so they did. The Feld playback experiment vanished into the fires of '07. Even one would be very useful. Though I understand the socio-economic causes of the revolution, it pains me to imagine the revolutionaries setting fire to the precious device. But so they did. The Feld playback experiment vanished into the fires of '07. Great. Great to hear that. Alternative, I don't even have a mainstream way in, I'm afraid, although there's a sewage pipe there. Maybe that does something? Sorry, I can't help more. No, I'm afraid I can't help you with this one, officer. It's just a regular day off for me and Mikhail here. They started out as a midway electronics outfit in Königstein 2 centuries ago. After an aggressive move to Revachol, Feld became a global player in the emerging personal electronics market of the pre-revolutionary era. An elegant folding mechanism of rollers and ferrotape ribbons, portable enough to be a take-it-home solution. Revolutionizing business machines, possibly even bring them to the average consumer. No, I'm sorry. As I said, this is just a day off. We just arrived anyway. Well, that certainly depends. You know, the popular image of the coalition is of a monolithic politico-military entity. But in reality, it's comprised of many interconnected yet semi-autonomous components. For instance, the offices of Inchecom are responsible for military affairs. These offices are located in the Bank of the World building, just a few kilometers from here. Well, then there's also the Provisional Commission as well as the Institute for Revacholian Culture, with its architecturally significant headquarters in Le Jardin. Inchecom is responsible for all aspects of the military occupation of Revachol. During the revolution, they coordinated the efforts of the Occidental and Gradian invasion. But these days, their function is primarily logistical. Oh, the Institute is a marvelous organization, my favorite part of the coalition by far. Their mandate is twofold: to export notable works of Revacholian culture throughout the moral intern, while also importing the most important culture products of the wider world to citizens of Revachol. Of course there is. The coalition's economic affairs are handled by the Bank of the World, Revachol Mission. They operate in concert with the Institute of Price Stabilité in Cercle. Ah, that's simple. You're looking for the Comité de Responsabilité de Revachol. It's a sort of clearinghouse for coalition affairs in Revachol. If you will, picture the coalition as a kind of wheel. The hub of this wheel is the Comité de Responsabilité, and out from that hub radiate a great many spokes, which connect to Inchecom, the Institute for Revacholian Culture, the Provisional Commission, and so on. There's an exhibition on Vespertine Proto-Expressionism that I can't wait to take Mikhail to. We're working our way through the major artistic movements of the last century. I have a long-standing interest in political systems. You see, it's my personal theory that political systems are a lot like personalities. In other words, how a state organizes itself is in some way the public expression of its innermost character. Well now, that is rather complicated. You can write to the committee directly, but I understand that there's quite the backlog. A month or more, according to friends of mine who just so happen to know about this sort of thing. Of course, if you could somehow contact Coalition Warship Archer, you could reach the committee directly. But, well, that obviously presents any number of logistical and technical challenges. Of course, officer, we've only recently met. It would require a more thorough conversation than we have time for to answer a question like that. It's fascinating to think about, though, isn't it? Why, officer, it's that gigantic aerostatic right over there. Have you really never noticed it before? Oh well, that's a relief to hear. It would really be quite concerning if you hadn't been aware of it until just now. Fascinating. You know, in one sense, that's exactly what the coalition intends. You see, they would prefer that most people in Revachol don't think of themselves as living under a military occupation. That's why they generally prefer to keep their warships at a discreet distance from major population centers. That is certainly how the coalition intends for it to be seen. You know, I once read a very interesting paper from Messina on the psychology of air-based artillery. Apparently, its presence stimulates the exact same part of the neural cortex that more primitive cultures associate with divine judgment. Isn't that fascinating? That's very interesting. Most people I've met say it reminds them of a giant metallic dragonfly, but of course, there is no right way to respond to a massive airborne artillery platform. Ah, well, it is one of the most heavily armed aerostatics to ever fly. I've heard it said that the Archer is capable of engaging whole fleets of lesser vessels from multiple sides simultaneously. How about that? I believe that is intentional. You see, the Coalition are very sensitive to how they are perceived by the people of Rivashol, which is why they generally prefer for their warships to remain at a discreet distance from major population centers. A very astute question. You see, in addition to its role as a military warship, the Archer is also responsible for coordinating all Coalition communications and surveillance operations in Rivashol. Not just watching, it's listening as well. I don't know the particulars, of course, but I would expect a warship like the Archer to possess the most advanced surveillance equipment available outside of Seoul. Well, I suppose you could rent a private aerostatic and attempt to rendezvous with Archer directly, but I must caution against it. Warships like the Archer are usually authorized to fire on unidentified aerostatics on site. That might be the trickiest question of all. From a technical standpoint, it shouldn't be all that difficult. You simply require a radio transmitter capable of broadcasting on Coalition frequencies. The problem is that those sorts of radio transmitters are tightly controlled by the Coalition. Even the RCM doesn't typically have access to them outside of special joint operations. All that said, someone with a powerful radio and a certain level of technical skill might be able to circuit bend their way onto the Coalition frequencies. It's only too bad the old Feld engineers are no longer available. This sort of thing would have been right in their wheelhouse. In any event, it's a fascinating technical challenge. I'll be very interested to see how you tackle it. Of course, Lieutenant. Take your time. Mikhail and I have plenty to keep us occupied. Ah, yes, their famous motto. A fine example of technological optimism from... She? I don't know who you mean, but the building seems long abandoned to me. Well, I was trying to explain to Mikhail what it is the officer keeps returning here for, then I realized I don't know. Ask the Wind or Ask Eyvinden is the name of a Vasan lullaby. Maybe that helps. Bladspatter reading, Brewster Sacrifice, still quite common in Rivashol. Hope it helps. Ask Rivashol is the name of a wartime radio show the communists used to address civil issues. Maybe that helps. Of course, this didn't mean to imply otherwise. I am not sure, Mikhail. Officer, be careful. Officer! Oh my god, I can't believe it. Teleportation, Mikhail. It's generally thought impossible. Hello, I'm Trant Heidelstam. I believe we've met on several occasions. I don't quite know what I'm doing here. I was asked to participate as an expert. I think I need to manage your expectations a little. I'm at best an enthusiast in cognitive science. My background is in something else entirely. I engage in neurology on a merely theoretical level. In fact, I should probably get going. Yes, I'm Trant Heidelstam. I never said I wasn't Trant Heidelstam. I wouldn't quite say that, but yes, he is displaying aggression not atypical of late-stage alcoholism. I sent him home. Mikhail's with his mother. We share custody. Mikhail? Mikhail's my son. No problem. What indeed? I was asked to share my take on some of the more obscure theories developed in Königstein in the 30s, like partial psychotraumatic amnesia, group personality theory. Again, I was asked to share my take on some of the more fringe academic theories developed in Königstein in the 30s. For example, partial psychotraumatic amnesia, group personality theory. Yes, there could have been cameras. This needs damage control. The line is from Lou Giatton's Mirova cycle, isn't it? About girl-child communism, the titular returning character, the ghostly apparition of... Good choice, Harry. Okay. No, I was just interested in the Feld building and the Martinez beachhead. And Mikhail wanted to see Martinez. It was a coincidence. What am I? I was asked to share my take on some of the more fringe academic theories developed in Königstein in the 30s, regarding partial psychotraumatic amnesia, group personality theory. I'm technically just a civilian advisor. Well, he doesn't have visible tremors, he talks without slurring, he can drive a boat, he's standing, reasoning. All good signs, but complete retrograde amnesia, episodic and semantic. As displayed in the station call, our interactions with him, and I don't want to be a snitch, but also mine with him before when Harry did not seem to know who I was. It's all very interesting. Yes, interesting. I have my theories, but I would like to hear Harry's thoughts first. Harry, what do you think happened to you? Neurologically, psychologically, and why not socioeconomically? As displayed in your interactions with him here and previously at the bar, and I don't want to be a snitch, but also mine with him before when Harry did not seem to know who I was. It's all very interesting. As displayed in our interactions with him here, and also his interactions with the locals, where he did not remember being a law official. It's all very interesting. Interesting. So at first he dipped his toes into it, prepared. That's where he would have gotten the idea, yes. Practice. And then he used alcohol to get there, so to speak. Not when you phrase it like that, but I don't think critical theory. I know everyone thinks this is far-fetched pink academia, but still, I don't think it should be off the table here. No, not like that. I'm not talking Vredevoort's school here. But Harry, I asked you, what do you think happened? Lefty Dink? Well, actually, I don't consider myself a classical leftist at all. Not in the Mazovian sense at least, but fine. Theory aside, what happened? Well, here's my theory. What if this is an absolutely normal reaction to the world we're living in? What if this is not a significant anomaly at all, something to be explained, approached as a defect? Look at the sensory input here. Look at the ruins, the neon. Listen to the radio, the multitudes, the people. Live here for 40 years. As a police detective, he's like a magnetic reader on the world tape, to borrow a known metaphor. Harry's been pushed flat against it. Total input. Hardwired to the free market. He just needed for it to end. He's not a cretin, and he is able to do work, if not in his previous leadership role, then as a line detective. It's an urban myth, a police detective who employs highly experimental investigative techniques. It's a cultural reference detective. The line is from Lou Giatun's Mirova 82, isn't it? About girl-child communism, the titular returning character, the ghostly apparition of... Good choice, Harry. A new species. I must say, this is absolutely extraordinary. I don't even have words for it. We could order a search. I could get people from EPIS on the island, entomologists, doctors. There must be signs of it in the reeds. If we found the Insulindian phasmid, well, that would be absolutely exceptional. The PR value alone. Did he just say Insulindian phasmid? Female? What makes you think so? Yes. That would be a chiromone, a pheromone that's seemingly beneficial to the host. It usually stimulates the affected nervous system. Not a human's, of course, but perhaps a predator's? As in cloning itself? What makes you think so? Incredible. Were there eggs in the nest? Like cephalopods? Phasmids, I think, only have nerves in their heads and abdomens, though. There is a correlation between invertebrate size and intelligence. Was it... Actually, this would indicate it was a male. This is far from anything in my field, but I think such nests are called bowers. They are for attracting mates. Of course, as I said, I'm only guessing. I didn't see it. It must be robust if it can move that with its limbs. Of course, as I said, I'm only guessing. I didn't see it. It must be robust if it can move a whole helmet with its limbs. Well, then it wouldn't matter if it's a male or female. The bower would just be rudimentary behavior from before the parthenogenetic mutation. Interesting. Then it is especially vulnerable to disease. A single strain of bacteria could wipe out the entire species. We're probably talking conservation efforts here. Very interesting. Such organisms are extremely vulnerable to disease. A single strain of bacteria could wipe out the whole species. We're probably looking at conservation efforts here. Must be robust if it can move a helmet with its limbs. There are species of bees that, under the influence of chiromones, take wasp larvae to their hives. Ants do the same with aphids, thinking they're... Do you think this is how it stayed hidden? At that size, this creature would have a lot of surface area to put neurons into. It's basic geometry. Of course, I'm getting ahead of myself. Stick insects have primitive nervous systems. Still, this creature would have a lot of surface area to put neurons into. Incredible. The PR value of this is exceptional. Carp discovers new species. Maybe even discovers the Insulindian phasmid. No, that's too much. Absolutely, this is great. This does not say vigilante murderers to me at all. This says science, news, human interest. You know, it's a really good thing you have that photo. Incredible. It's a toughie that you don't have a photo. This would look very, very flashy in the papers. None of it says vigilante murderers to me at all. Great PR. We can still work Cop discovers new species in there. I know a good guy in La Majeste, but only after the École Supérieure people find it. This cannot be done by French people. Lilianovich. A revolutionary matronym. The custom started in Grad, where they have patronyms. Krasovich, Lasovich, etc. The revolutionaries saw this as a chauvinist atavism, so they used matronyms, derived from the mother's name instead. This man would be Lilian's son, Lilianovich. The custom was overturned after the revolutions failed, but not before making it to Revachol. This man's mother was Lilian, his Lilian's son, Lilianovich. The custom was overturned after the revolution failed, but not before it made it to Revachol. Of course, excuse me, I just thought it was noteworthy. You know, Harry, if I may interrupt again, it would help if you had evidence. Any proof and I'd play ball here. The PR potential would be quite something for the RCM. You know, Harry, if I may interrupt, it would help if you had evidence. Any proof and I'd play ball here. The PR potential would be quite something for the RCM. Some kind of, what were they called? A bower? Yes. Things collected for a mating display. This would indicate a male, but I don't know of insects displaying bowery behavior. Well, that's not exactly proof. It's a theory. But it is interesting. That's not proof, it's a description. But befitting a stick insect. If it's camouflaged to look like the reeds, then it would have to be pretty large. Plants turning into bugs is a typical hallucination. Archetypical even, dating back to many ancient tribal societies. You're right about that. For the sake of political neutrality, I would like to not partake in anything union-related. Then it wouldn't matter if it's male or female. The bower would just be rudimentary behavior from before the parthenogenetic mutation. Interesting. Then it is especially vulnerable to disease. A single strain of bacteria could wipe out the entire species. We're probably talking conservation efforts here. I would prefer not to partake in anything union-related for political neutrality. It's tough. One of the toughest addictions to overcome, comparable only to heavy synthetic opiates. Even morphine is easier to kick than alcohol, statistically. The odds are against him, especially at his age. Agreed. The public relations potential of this is too valuable to let go. I assure you. I wouldn't consult for a corrupt unit. There's also a lot of outside help involved, not only me. Other losers too. Shooting up churches never is. I was out of town, to be clear. Yes. I hear worries from systems analysts in Vespa and Messina. International risk departments in Pangs. People like that. Maybe you can take the kid with you. Enroll him a year earlier and say he's 14. If he